The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Yoder, SEO.
Yoder. He is the founder and managing partner of Threefold Investing. Lee helps real estate investors navigate the waters of real estate investing, and he's also the host of his own Threefold Investing podcast. Welcome to the show, Lee. How are you, Lee?
Thank you. I'm doing well, Tim. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm excited to hear your story, man. In doing this is the first time we've met, and doing the due diligence and some of the background you shared with us. It's a great story. So, why don't we start from there? Just tell me how you got started, and kind of where you've been and where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like telling my story, Tim. Just because it's I didn't do anything special. For sure, I don't have any special talents. Probably less talented than your average listener. Yeah.
Come on now, you were a P. I know you were a PT before this, so
I did. Yes. So that is where it started. I was a physical therapist by trade. So, they make us get our doctorate. So I was able to somehow get through that. Had to go for college for 7 years. So, going from kindergarten to when I finally did graduate and was done with school, it was 20 years.
Wow.
So 20 straight years of school to become a physical therapist. Got out, was doing that. I did enjoy that. I started out outpatient clinic working with athletes and guys like you and I with weekend warrior injuries or something.
Right.
Enjoyed that, but didn't love the schedule for the family just because we had to stay open kind of later. And we were starting our family with young kids. And so they'd be in bed. So started doing home health physical therapy, which is a great schedule because I'm driving around now to older folks' homes and doing therapy in their home, and I can do it whenever I want, and tons of flexibility. So like my wife loved this job. I mean, I made enough. I was, we were never going to be rich, but made plenty for what we needed, and I had a lot of flexibility. Problem for me, Tim, was like God just didn't really wire me for a job like that. Right. It just wasn't challenging enough, wasn't exciting. It wasn't fulfilling. So the company I was with, I didn't really know it at the time, but they were a staffing company and they were a startup. So they ended up bringing me into the office, and they had me start building out this division around home health therapy. But I was the clinical director and managing therapist between a few cities, Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton, and then kind of moved into like a director of operations role. And so very quickly I was doing no therapy at all. I was not missing it at all. Wow. I was really enjoying like running a business. That's what it felt like. Like I said, it was a startup company, and they kind of just gave me the reins on this division. And I loved it. But after, a year or two of that, now I'm kind of at the other end of the spectrum. It felt like, so now my job's very challenging and exciting and fulfilling, but I don't have the flexibility. And so for my wife, and now 2 young kids at home, and she's staying home with them, it's not great for that side. So after a couple of years, I felt like, man, this isn't, what we really feel God has called us to, and me to in my career either, because now it feels like I'm sacrificing my family a little bit for the job. And then too, a lot of times in the corporate world, you can feel like the goalpost is kind of moving on you. Like, oh, if you do this and do this, then you're going to be here. And, a year later, it's like, oh, well, not yet. And, keep doing it. And so just kind of started looking around, like, what else can I do? Because it felt like, Tim, like, okay, I guess I have to go back to home health physical therapy, and it'll be good for the family, but I'll just be bored, but I'll just have to be bored. And I thought it's got to be something more than that. And that's when somebody handed me a real estate book. The next one I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and went down that rabbit hole and thought, okay, there is a different way. I mean, to me, that was like, there are people out there playing a completely different game. Like it's just a different game. And I thought, I want to learn more about this. So I started networking, talking to people. There was a guy at my church that was full-time in real estate, and honestly felt like he was kind of living the dream doing that. Because what I'm not real interested in, Tim, is like not working or really honestly working less. But I want to do work that's challenging and fulfilling. But I want to be able to control it more than I could control my corporate job. Right. So that's what I was looking for. And so it felt like real estate might be that. And more than real estate, honestly, just entrepreneurship. It felt like, being an entrepreneur, and real estate just spoke to me. My dad's in construction. I did construction growing up. So it spoke to me on a lot of different levels, but it felt like being an entrepreneur, starting my own thing, working really hard, but on my terms. That's what I was looking for. So the way I did that, Tim, is I did go back to home health physical therapy. Again, kind of a boring job that's not fulfilling, but it's a job, it's steady, it's income. And it gave me a lot of flexibility and a lot of margin to start real estate as a side hustle. And again, I like telling my story like that, Tim, because as we all know, so many more people are working from home today, and probably have more flexibility than they used to have. And so I just think it's maybe a better time than ever for people to be able to start into real estate as a side hustle. Now you could argue with where prices are and maybe we're at the peak, might not be the best time to buy, but hey, as far as the flexibility and being able to have a side hustle, maybe it's a better time than ever. And so, hey, if things correct, maybe if the Fed really drives us into recession, correct, then it'll be the best time ever. And you've got the time and margin to do the side hustle, and then real estate will be a good time to buy or not. But that's what I did. I left my corporate job at the end of 2016, went back to home health physical therapy. I did take a big pay cut, but again, it was worth it to me. I wanted to go for it. I wanted to do real estate. And it was at the end of 2017 that I, got our first, we just started with a flip, started that in 2017. And that's how I got into it. And that's how I got started in real estate.
Yeah, I saw. I read your quick story about your first flip, and you likened it. You basically said it was just another job. Yeah. Yeah, it really was. It was a perfect picture. I felt like God gave me this perfect picture, Tim, because when like I just said, when I left the corporate job, I took like maybe a 30% pay cut. When I added the flip on top of this home health physical therapy job, I literally just made back what I lost. So I gave up this really busy corporate job for a not so busy physical therapy job, but with a flip on top of that to make me really busy and make back what I made. So it was like, I literally just gave up one really busy job with a higher salary for a not so busy job with a flip on top of it to equal out the same salary. So it's like, and then when I sold it, I had nothing, right? I had nothing to show for the fact that I was in real estate. Now I didn't own anything. So it was like, yeah, this is just a job, and that's fine. I don't want to say no one should do it. We made good money, and I learned a lot about real estate and started getting some connections and all that. So it's one of those things, Tim, a lot of guys say, right? And a lot of guys and girls, I would not do it again, but I'm glad I did because it got me going. Right. So that was the spark that kind of pushed you through the threshold, obviously, and also being led to do so and led to be an entrepreneur. So talk about the entrepreneur side, coming from more of the corporate side. And it's funny to say corporate side when you're a PT, because, I'm sure going into it, all those 20 years of school from kindergarten through college, and, you never really looked at it as a corporate job, but that's kind of what it evolved into and kind of went to. Tell me about that leap of faith. Tell me about that leap of faith. You had that calling, I want to be an entrepreneur. Tell me about that transition and what it did to you, you and your family, or how it affected you and your family. Yeah, it's a really good question. Because, the way we did it, Tim, it wasn't like, hey, I want to leave the corporate job. I want to get into real estate. So I'll go from a busy corporate job to like, I'm all in on entrepreneurship. We did build it up over time. So I went back to home health physical therapy. So I still had a steady job. So maybe, I don't know what that looks like for other people. Maybe I think sometimes it might just mean not taking a promotion. Maybe you already have a job where you have some margin, but you're like, I want to make more money, so I got to take the promotion. Well, maybe you don't, but you make more money by getting into real estate. So it's going to look different for everybody. But for me, Tim, I was able to have a job that did allow for that. So I started that in 2016, that job, back to that job. It wasn't until 2017 I got it. And then it was 2020 that I quit. So it was 3 years of doing physical therapy and real estate. And it was at the end of 2020 that I was able to quit. So felt like forever to me, because once I got in, I just wanted so badly to just only do real estate. But it was 3 years, but it's quick on other, time horizons, right? Like 3 years, pretty quick from just getting started again. Because the first year I only did one flip. The second year I only did one duplex. And so that third year we were able to do some multifamily and then quit at the end of 2020. So I feel very blessed, but that helped because entrepreneurship is really challenging, Tim. One part that you might not even think about, like, just for me to wake up and decide what to do today, there's a lot of days I have some things I feel like I have to do, but there's sometimes it's like, what do I do to make sure I'm getting paid a year from now? It's challenging, right? Because
in the corporate world or any W-2 job, the answer to that question is just stay employed.
To show up.
Yeah, right. If I show up, if I don't mess up, if I keep my job, then I'm pretty sure I'm going to still be getting paid next year. Whereas for us, you know, even though we're syndicating properties now, like I need to keep buying properties or at least improving the ones we have. And like, how do we do that? How do we make sure we hit close on a property next year? It's much harder to answer. And like, what do I do today is kind of difficult. So it's hard to get there. So it was nice for us to kind of have that transition period of like, every day I still knew like, okay, if I want to get paid next year, I just keep being a physical therapist. So I know I've got that. Okay. But then if I want to move the real estate business forward, what do I do? And there's a lot that goes into that. Networking is a big part of it. Go talk to people that are doing it. What are they doing every day? What do they think you should do next? And things like that. I'm a big fan of coaching, mentoring. I haven't done the big paid programs, but I've found mentors and I think that's vital. So yeah, it's a really good question, Tim, because it is difficult. Being an entrepreneur is tough. Especially maybe with like real estate, because it's not like, hey, I've got this vision, I'm opening a coffee shop. So every day I just go into the same place and try to get this coffee shop going. It's a little bit different. That it's like, buy this, but then what am I buying next? Where am I buying? You know, all that stuff.
There's no drive-by appeal, right? I mean, it is. There's curb appeal on real estate. That's true. But, you know, people aren't driving by going, hey, there's Lee. You know, I need to stop by and take a look at what he's got going on. It doesn't work like that. So when you talk about the networking, especially, you know, if you're faith-based, within communities that are where there are like-minded people, it's what you have to do. And and I'm 100% with you. That's the way it should be done. And I think a lot of people. So let's talk about that a little bit. You know, you have an approach within your company. It's a threefold process. Which so tell me about a little bit about that. You know, about the buy right, manage right, treat right. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, good question. I think, you know, when it starts with buy right, I think the thing that you really have to learn to do is underwrite. So you have to get really, if you don't not underwrite, like somebody on your team has to, you have to get trained. That's where I think, again, like the coaching, mentoring, like you've got to really learn to underwrite. What that means to me most, Tim, is when you buy, you've got to some degree predict the future. When you're looking at a property, it does matter the rent they're getting today, of course. But you know, all the data you gather from the guy selling the property, that tells you how the property operated for him. Right. That doesn't mean anything necessarily how it's going to operate for you. And for the most part, you're going to want it to operate even better, right? Like the prices we're paying today, we need the property to do even better. We need rent to go up. So you've got to decide how much can I get that rent to go up? And that's what you've got to get really good at, because if you're wrong about that, you're going to be wrong about all your projections. If you think you can get 1,200 from 800 and you can only get it to 1,000, that's a big difference. And you know, your property is not going to do as well. Your investors aren't going to be as happy, you know, things like that. So, and then the second part of that question, Tim, is like, what does it take to get it there? Okay. I can get from 800 to 1,200 per unit, and that's going to be awesome. But do I need to, you know, all new landscaping, paint the exterior of the building, paint the entire interior, and then renovate every unit? How much is that going to cost? So that's buying right. I say all that because to me, those two things tell you how much you can pay for a property. I was just talking to somebody recently and they said, what? And I was talking about make sure you have enough reserves. And they're like, well, but then how can you buy? Well, sometimes you may not. You may say, hey, I want to buy for 10 million. And you're doing some underwriting and you're like, I just need to raise 3. But then you find out, no, I really need to raise 3.5 because we need to put more into the property. And I want to have like hefty reserves just in case. Well, then we might not be able to pay 10 million on it now. Now we might only be able to pay 9.5 million, right? Because of the returns, because we're raising 3.5 instead of 3. Well, then you might not win the property because somebody might be willing to pay 10, but that's what you have to do to buy right. You got to make sure you're being really smart and you underwrite really well to know what you can pay for a property and do really well with that property and provide good returns. So it's so important. It's really difficult, especially in a competitive environment like we are today, because you may know I have to pay 11 to win this property, but my underwriting keeps coming back at 10. Right. You just got to let somebody else. And that would be my encouragement, is to let somebody else. So that's the buying right. Manage right, Tim. What I'll say about that, we use third-party management. Frankly, I just have no interest in managing my own properties. I have no interest in building a property management company. Maybe someday I'd partner with a guy or girl that does, and I'll let them run with it. Maybe. But for right now, for us, managing right means finding a good property manager. And I think it's so important. You've got to get that right. I mean, after buying right, you've got to find, if you're not managing it yourself, you've got to find the right property management company. because they are the ones that are actually operating the property on the ground, right?
Right.
They're the ones driving rent. They're the ones marketing the property, doing so much to decide whether or not you hit that rent you told people you were going to hit, right? I mean, you may say, hey, the market told me it's going to hit 1,200. Well, it's your property management company that's going to actually go find those people that will pay 1,200. So you got to get that part right. And then do right. For us, Tim, I mentioned, the threefold comes from Ecclesiastes, book in the Bible. We're very much faith-based people, and we want to do right. We want to love God well, and we want to love people well. For us, that's, we really want to do right by our residents. So we try to, do some things, maybe we're leaving some meat on the bone where we could probably pull more from our residents, and maybe we're not doing that. Maybe we're letting the property be a little bit nicer than it needs to be, doing some nicer finishes than we really need to for the area, things like that. And then just, helping people out. I mean, our property management company definitely knows that for us, we want to work with people when they come and say, hey, here's a situation. We always want to, hey, let's hear about that. Let's lean into that. Let's see if we can work with them. And then for our investors, we really want to do right by our investors. We do attract a lot of, we do attract a lot of people of faith, a lot of Christ followers, but we also just attract a lot of people that are really up for that. And maybe, again, maybe they know their returns might not be what we could squeeze out of it because we're trying to do right. But we want to do right by them too.
Yeah. I mean, being transparent and doing the right thing is never wrong. That's always kind of been my philosophy, no matter what the case is. Kind of like telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about, I have a couple of questions about this. Tell me about how you find your properties. That's always something that people ask me all the time, because I talk to so many people in real estate. Well, how are they finding the properties? What are they doing? Oh, and I hear, I get everything from, go find probate to foreclosure to, just drive by everywhere. So what's your philosophy, or what's your plan of attack on that?
Yeah, this is a great question for today. It's such a competitive environment. I mean, I don't do much, Tim. There's a lot more. There's a lot of other guys and girls that would answer this even better for us. I will say our first couple of properties we found on loopnet.com, which is, a lot of people will be shocked by that. And they say it's where properties go to die. And I knew that at the time. And I was like, well, that's probably where I'm going to find them then, because no broker is going to take me seriously. So I'll go pick up the scraps that nobody else wanted. And that's what I did to get started. Now this was 2018. So, and that's when I started looking for them. I guess we bought them in 19, but it was a different time. It was. So it's not really where I'd tell people to start today. Maybe unless you want some smaller multifamilies. And that's where we started. We bought a 16, 8 unit, and 10 unit. Today it's brokers though, Tim, for me. And it's trying to get a good enough relationship with them where they might bring you the property before they list it. I mean, that's my goal, is just to get the brokers to know that, I mean, you still have to pay the price, right? But if I can not let it get bid up by, 20 guys, now that's cooled off a little bit. But if he or she can come to me and say, hey, Lee, I'm pretty sure this is something you'd want to look at. We're looking to get this listed in the next couple of weeks. And if I can get in there and I really like it and say, hey, what are they looking to get? If I can pay that and take it off the market, that's where I'm probably, doing the most work to try to find properties and it's now to the point, Tim, you don't have this ability when you haven't closed, but we have closed on a few now. So there's some brokers that know how easy we are to work with. So that really helps with
that reputation, right? I mean, that's
exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that's how we're trying to find them today.
Fantastic. So let me go the inverse to that. Well, I wouldn't call it the inverse. The partner to that is, so, you're investors. Where do you find the investors? How are they coming to you? You're getting the word out. People know who you are. You're making those contacts. But now we're on a global platform, right? I mean, you and I are 1,000 miles away, and we're having this conversation. How are you finding investors for properties now? Because I did kind of go through and saw that you had some prerequisites, some questions for folks, and how are you finding those people?
Yeah, it's really twofold. We started small. We started investing with family and friends, people from our church and stuff like that, and our own network. My business partner and I, we said, we got a lot of people in our own network. Let's do that. And that really is how it started. And then the other thing I'll say, Tim, that's been really good to me is the local RIA, the Cincinnati RIA. You go down there and it's a bunch of people who are interested in real estate, and probably most of them think they want to be active. And maybe they dip their toes in and they find out this is really messy. And a lot of them are older, and not like old, but so they're not like wanting to hustle real hard, but they want to do real estate. And so a lot of those people end up thinking that syndications look really good to partner in that. And they get to know me because they're local. So that's been a big one for us. So I would say family, friends, your own network. I mean, even people that Kevin and I don't think I mentioned, but my business partner worked at that corporate job with me as well. We have a network back there. We've had some of those people invest with us. So who's in your own network? I think a local REIA is a great place to go too. And so we've built that up. And then what has happened since then, Tim, is like those people have gone and told other people. So that's some of the organic growth, this like snowball that we've built here locally. And then the way you mentioned, I do have a podcast. I do try to put stuff out on social media. I try to go on great podcasts like yours, Tim, and that gets the word out. So we do have some people out of state that, and what we're trying to put out on our website and what we're trying to put out on social media is here's who we are and here's what we're doing. And so typically it's people that are already interested in real estate, but they see what we're doing and they think, I want to invest in real estate and I think I might want to do it with Threefold. So I'm going to, go to the website and give them my email, and then we'll end up reaching out to them. So we do find some people that way too. Some people just through our marketing, our social media, being on podcasts, and they come and they take a look and they say, yeah, I might want to partner up with those guys.
So where do you see Threefold, in the future? Give me the 5-year forecast or what's maybe going on in the back of Lee's mind of where you'd like to be and maybe even how you got there or how you could get there? Yeah,
good question. So two big steps for us, Tim. So the first 2 properties that we syndicated at the beginning of 2021 were a 45 unit and a 47 unit. And then at the end of 2021, we got a 96 unit. And getting that 96 unit, I had an office on site and we put somebody on site, and that was a game changer. If you listen to a lot of podcasts, you'll hear guys and girls who have been in the multifamily game say, a lot of times they'll say, I would never buy anything less than 100 units again, because once I got there, I realized the economies of scale, different things like that. What we've seen, Tim, is that when you have a property where you can put somebody on site, it's just a game changer. They own the property. That's like their baby. And they come every day and they make sure it's cleaned up and they make sure people are taken care of. And they are trying really hard every day to fill all the vacant units. And that's what we want. So that was a big step. And then the other thing, Tim, we actually started working with a new property management company. One of the properties that we took on here in Cincinnati, all the properties before that were in Dayton, and our property management company in Dayton didn't do Cincinnati. And the property management company that was managing the property in Cincinnati already for the seller, you could just tell by their P&L, by their T12, that property management company is doing well. And they're really well known in Cincinnati. And so we decided to keep them on. And the property management company we were working with, they managed like 1,500 units, and they managed a lot of small stuff. The property management company that we started working with now, they manage 12 to 14,000 units, and they only manage big stuff. They have a model where they put people on site. And it's been a game changer, Tim. Their economies of scale, their purchasing power with Home Depot is incredible. I mean, they get things done cheaper, quicker, better. Their marketing that they do, I mean, they charge us for it, but it's like, wow, that's worth it because you're getting ridiculous rents. So
people are lining up and you didn't even lift a finger. You brought them in, bringing in good people. And you and I will never have that argument. Bringing in good people.
Oh yeah.
Is paramount. Yeah.
That's a long way to answer your question, Tim, that I would really like to stay around 100 units or more. I would like to keep working with this same property management company. I would like to just keep adding units to them and just build a portfolio with them. They're regional. So they're here in Dayton, Cincinnati. So we would love to keep buying here. Maybe it's 80 units and up, but because the problem, Tim, is once you get above 100 units, the competition's really stiff. You're working against some big money that frankly just has a cheaper cost of capital than I do. So it's hard to compete with them. So we'd like to stay right around 100 units right in the area. We'd like to keep using the same property management company. They're down in Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky. They're over in Indianapolis. So that's kind of the plan, is just to keep adding these properties, keep working with the same property management company, and just keep building a portfolio.
I think that sounds like a great plan. Really do.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I hope so.
If anybody want to get in touch with you, Lee, where do they go? How do they get in touch with you? What are the details on that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Tim. And because you bring up another point, like that's the other part of the plan. We can't do any of this if we don't have investors partnering with us. And so, yeah, we definitely want to continue to grow our investor base. When I was doing the small multis, I just had one partner and I was able to do really well by them. And so it was really fun because I got to do real estate, which I love doing, and I got to make really good money doing it, which was really great. But then my partner did too, which was really cool. I mean, my first partner was my in-law. So it's kind of nice to impress your in-laws,
That
right?
helps, right?
Make them some money, right? So, but I want to do that with more people. And I still feel that way today. I want to do it with more and more people. So if you jump on our website, threefoldrei.com, you got to mention Tim, and I appreciate that. But we've got some good educational material there. We've got a link to the podcast I do. We've got, a way to sign up, kind of jump in and get our monthly newsletter, things like that. And we'll reach out to you, but threefoldrei.com. That's where you can find us. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, Tim, if they want to look me up there.
Fantastic. Now, I always like to give everybody kind of the last word. Anything you'd like to say, or kind of your feelings you want to get out there? This is where I give them that opportunity.
Yes. We wrote an ebook called 5 Steps to Passive Income for the Full-Time Dad. It's for moms too, but my partner and I are both dads. And we just believe strongly that, it kind of goes all the way back to the rich dad, poor dad idea, but like,
right,
there's a different way to make money. I think there's so many people out there that want to make a little bit more, because they want to support their family really well. And I love that. I think that's great. Obviously, maybe they want to send their kids to private school, or maybe they want to take a really fun vacation because their kids are in that age. That's where my kids are. Like, I just want to take them everywhere.
right.
Maybe you can invest in real estate,
Right.
And make some extra money. If you can be diligent, or if you've already saved up some money, and you can put it into cash flowing real estate that pays you today and tomorrow. That's the beauty of it, Tim, is like, it's
Right.
not just about building an nest egg. It's about maybe putting enough at work that you can make an extra 10 grand a year. 10
Right.
grand a year pays for either one incredible vacation, or maybe two. Maybe 10 grand a year helps you send your kids to private school so that you don't have to work even more. Or maybe you can get going so well that mom or dad can be part-time, things like that. So that's what I'm really passionate about, is like, not everybody's going to go quit their job and do real
Right.
estate full-time like me, nor should they. But man, if you can put your money to work for you, I think cash flowing multifamily real estate is a great way to do it. Then it can be life-changing in small but very meaningful ways.
Fantastic. Well, you got me believing. I believe it. Thank you so much, Lee, for being on the show. And I look forward to our next conversation. I think we'll have many more.
Great. Thanks for having me, Tim. It was a pleasure.
Have a great day.
Too.
All right. Fantastic. Pretty good. How'd
Cool,
you go?
man.
Good.
Yeah, it was
do all
fun.
the work.
Yeah.
How many
Yep.
kids, if you don't mind me asking, how many kids you got?
2.